Hey there, everybody. I am Alexis Ward, and welcome to 12 Faces Psychology. So today's video is going to be about raising your vibration. It's kind of the big thing that we're all doing right now. It's not being asked of us, it's being required of us as the resonance of the planet changes and we are confronted with massive changes in social structures and the way that we've been living our lives. Raising your vibration is pretty much what it's all about. So, how do we go about doing that? I am going to give you guys 15 different suggestions of ways that I personally keep my vibration high and work on raising my consciousness, my awareness, and my overall energetic field to stay in alignment with what I want to create in my own reality. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so number one, and I'm putting this as number one because I think it is ultimately the most important one. That is, take full ownership of your emotional state. Super important. If you are still looking at your emotional state as a result of what's happening in the external world, if you think the internal is a result of the external and not the other way around, you are not taking full responsibility for your emotional state. Understand that at a deep level, everything that you feel is about you. It's about your life history. It's about your mood in the moment. It's about your particular conditioning you've experienced. No matter what it is about you. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't actual things going on in the environment that are eliciting the response that you're having. But what it does mean is that the actual felt experience is your responsibility always, 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 always. It is always about you. When you own that, when you step into that and you really get it, then you can start to work with these experiences in an effective and productive way, because then you're not a victim of what's happening to you. You're not living in reaction. You are recognizing that things are your creation. So instead of reacting to a situation, you can respond out of intentional awareness. And you can make a decision about how you want to interact with that outcome. What do you want to learn from it? What can you take from it? How can you transmute it into something that feels more in alignment with the energetic state that you want to be in? Okay. Number two, which plays off of that one, transmute what isn't in your highest good. So I did a whole video on emotional transmutation. If that concept doesn't sound familiar to you or you want to really get into the nitty-gritty of that, go watch that video. Basically, what we mean here is if what's coming up for you in an outcome is, oh my God, I felt so rejected. This really tapped into my lack of self-worth. I'm realizing that there are a lot of places where I'm still holding on to that vibration. I'm having a lot of past memories come up for me of places where I didn't feel worthy, times when I abandoned myself. This is just an example, but this is what's happening for people right now, right? We're having our resonance shifted by the planet's resonance shifting. And so things that aren't in alignment with that increasing frequency are having to kind of come up to the surface to be healed. And the way to heal these things is to feel them in the moment and transmute them. So go check out that other video. And, the process of owning your emotional state is really about being able to recognize that you're creating that felt experience so that you have other options of how you want to feel. And you can actually move out of a state of worthlessness and into a state of deep self-love and appreciation through that kind of a process. So transmute what's not in your highest good. If you're recognizing, oh wow, this feeling that I'm not enjoying is about me, it's about my past, it's about things that I've needed to heal, and you sit with that and you allow that process to happen and to just feel what needs to be felt, then you can move into the lighter, higher vibrational, more free and expanded state. All right, number 3, do what brings you joy every day. Every day. Not just occasionally, not on the weekend. Whatever brings you joy, do it every fucking day. For real. Because this is a stressful time. This is not a time where self-care is optional. It is absolutely required that you be on top of your self-care. So if there's something in your life, like for me, for instance, I love to dance. I love music. I love to move my body. I love to be in that like exciting, joyful space that I find through dance. So I make sure that I do that every day. Now, if there's not opportunities to do that in sort of a more structured day, I just dance in my kitchen with my kids, you know? Bring that energy, whatever brings you joy, whatever puts life into you, whatever inspires you, do that on a very, very regular basis, because it's essential that we keep attuned to, we keep integrating that thread of like that higher state of unlimited, alive, joyful feeling. So every day. Number 4, harmonize, polarity, don't contribute to it. Now, this one is so important right now. As I'm recording this, we are just like a week away from the election, and there is more polarity probably than there's ever been on the planet in the last few hundred years. So it's really, really important that we begin to understand how we contribute to polarity through our own judgment. If you are thinking there's another side and that they have different opinions, different judgments, different ways of processing what's going on right now, and you look at that as a lesser understanding of what's going on, if you're judging that as they're wrong and we're right, it's us versus them, you know, these people are evil and bad and, you know, untrustworthy, but our side, if there's any part of you that is having that kind of a polarized internal appraisal of what's going on, you're contributing to the polarity. The whole key here is to not get triggered into pulling into either side. To understand that we are all human and ultimately want the same things and have the same desires for ourselves as living beings, and that we all ultimately can come to a place where we support each other in that. And instead of getting sucked into like, it's so stupid, you think that, blah, 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 here's what's really going on. Hold that middle ground, hold that balance, hold that harmony in being able to understand, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, like if I put myself in your shoes and I think about sort of like the priorities that you're feeling are most important right now, I understand where you align more with that message. For me, my gravitation is more in this direction because these are the things that I'm feeling most called to right now. But that doesn't mean that your things are wrong. It doesn't mean that my things are wrong. But we can understand each other through this by simply looking at it as what we're most drawn to right now, not that these things are inherently more or less important than the other things. I hope that made sense. But basically, don't get sucked into thinking there's a right and a wrong, a good and a bad in this situation. Remember that the goal here is harmony among all people and a sense of unity among all people. And we do not get that by repeating the judgments of those we have been judged by ourselves. So if somebody's been hateful to you and then you go out and be hateful, are you any better than them? You might make up a story to blame them, but ultimately you are them. So get a hold of yourself, because the change has to start at home. The change has to start here with yourself. All right, so number 5 is embrace your sovereignty. You are an infinite, conscious being. You are a being of light who will go on after this point. Embrace that you came here to have a felt experience, and that ultimately you are your own rulership, which means that you need to think for yourself, you need to use your own discernment, and you need to bring your actions in alignment with your values so that you can really enact and create your life as you want it to be, as you came here to create it. So embrace that sense of your own liberation and your own connection to your life path by owning your sovereignty. All right, number 6, balance, balance, balance. Everything in balance. I think that one of the tricky things about this time is that sometimes if you find something that makes you feel good, you're so desperate to connect with that feeling of like, oh, this feels good again, and this has been so stressful, and it's been a really hard time, etc., that you might overdo it. So if you're doing, and not spending enough time being, recognize that balance is ultimately the goal, not to feel constantly in some kind of like a high manic state, and not to feel constantly in some kind of a low depressed state, but to find that middle harmonic where you can really be balanced in terms of doing what you need to do, feeling what's real, like taking ownership and like confronting those things that need to be confronted in terms of your own internal work, but also resting, also having fun, also being in joy. So always looking at, where am I out of balance in my life right now? What areas of my life am I not feeding enough? So just balance, balance, balance. That's a very critical one. Number 7, find your tribe. So if you're looking around right now, who's with you? Who are the people that you feel like when you see that person, you're like, I get you. We're feeling this in the same way. We're kind of on the same wavelength about everything that's going on. We're good support for each other, right? So, this may be a time of really a lot of changes and evolution in terms of your personal relationships, because people that you may have been very kind of socially connected to before the start of this year may not be the same people you feel socially connected to now. There's such fundamental things going on in people's lives, so much uprooting, so much change, so much letting go of the things that weren't serving us. It's all evolving very quickly. And sometimes we need to kind of disconnect for a while from certain relationships because they're just not the right medicine for us in this moment. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't realign with that person sometime in the future, but if it's feeling like an absolute challenge, if there's 10 million subjects you have to avoid, if everything is like just about to spark an argument, that might be a relationship that you need to take a little pause from for a while. So find your tribe. Look for those people that you do align with, that you feel that sense of ease and comfort and like, I am understood with this person and I understand them, because that's the kind of healing medicinal relationship that we need to be engaging in right now. Okay, number 8, distance yourself from toxic relationships. So this is basically just kind of the correlate to the last one, which is if something's really not feeling good, especially those core relationships, like if you're in a marriage, if you're in a relationship that you live with somebody and it is literally feeling toxic, it's killing your spirit, it is eroding your ability to connect with your higher self and to raise your vibration, you need to take a real serious look about whether you need to shift into something else. So think about that. Think about what relationships are draining you and what relationships are empowering you. All right, number 9 is move the energy. So, like I mentioned before, for me, I do that through dance, through yoga, through different physical disciplines that help to move the energy. We are being saturated by a lot of high intensity frequencies from the universe right now. We're in a photon belt. We've got a lot of intense things going on. The Schumann resonance is changing. There's a lot happening. So there's a lot of energy that our bodies are being required to process on a visceral physical level. And it is very helpful for your physical body to move some of that energy. If it starts to stagnate, you're gonna get that like angsty feeling, right? Where you're like, oh, something's not right. I don't know. Oh, I just gotta like crawl outside of my skin. In order to prevent that, you want to move the energy. So whatever does it for you, whatever kind of like physical practice really gets your blood pumping and gets your cardiovascular system working so that you can start to move that energy effectively. Okay. Number 10, envision the outcome you desire and then feel it. So this one is really important, right? Because our capability as conscious eternal beings is to create the outcome that we desire through our focused consciousness and intent. If you are regularly, and I would say do this daily if you possibly can, think about what would it look like to live in a world where there was no war? And what would it feel like to not have fear of that? What would it look like and what would it feel like to live in a world of cooperation rather than perceived competition? What would it look like and what would it feel like to live in a world without a monetary system where people were allowed to pursue their interests without a sense of survival or lack attached to it? What would that look like and what would that feel like? Because the way that things come into physical existence is through our ability to conceptualize them and then make them real. So visualize it and feel it. Feel it in your body. What would it feel like? How free would you feel? How excited would you feel? How unlimited would you feel? All right. Number 11. Be compassionate with your human. This is a big deal, what we're going through right now. This is a huge deal. This is one of those moments in the cycles of the universe where there's a complete reset happening and we're being asked to level up at in a major way. So be compassionate with this human body, this human self, this little you that's been existing here this whole time in their little set ways that's all of a sudden being asked to completely change everything. That is a difficult thing to do. So be kind to your human self, have compassion for yourself, practice supportive internal talk, practice being loving with yourself, be the best friend that you would want in your own life. Okay, now number 12. This is hard when you get past 10 with the fingers. Trust the unfolding of existence. This is a really kind of key principle. I have actually a poem on my wall by Rudolf Steiner that reminds me of this every day. It is essential that we completely surrender to the flow of the universe with an understanding that there is, and now this is not about God, this is not about religion, this is not about any sort of like specific understanding of what's going on out there and what sort of like the highest level of all of this is. But if we can agree that the universe exists in a framework that has some degree of order and specific principles that unfold within it, that there seems to be an evolutionary and progressive nature to the very fabric of the universe. That is what we're surrendering to. Now, it doesn't have to be any like specific force or anything like that. It doesn't matter how you frame it. But if you can see, wow, there's something very intentional going on here. There's something like there's a developmental process at play. Then you can begin to see the wisdom in not resisting that and not like trying to control events or circumstances through your ego, through your personality, through kind of like your limited understanding of what's going on, because you limit the field of manifestation in doing that. You limit what outcomes are possible by only attaching yourself to one very specific outcome. So anytime that you're trying to push the river, anytime that you're operating out of fear and you're like, oh my God, I don't want this to happen, or oh my God, I want this to happen, I need this to happen, really let that be a red flag for you of, oh, I've stepped out of the flow of the universe. Let me again find that place where I can surrender to the innate wisdom of what is progressing and evolving here within the scheme of the universe. Okay. Number 13. is honor your inner authority. Listen to yourself. Trust yourself. Go on that journey. Trust what you feel. Trust what you know. Trust your own discernment and honor that in the moment. The more that you do that, the more that you are putting money into the bank of your own self-trust and empowerment. So make that a part of your practice. All right. Number 14 is rest. It is so critical. I just had my own experience of being reminded of this weekend because I've been in a very like go, go, go state. And this weekend I really rested and I feel so much more grounded. I feel so much more like clear and stable within myself. So don't forget to let yourself rest. This is an overwhelming and exhausting thing. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So we all need to remember to rest. Okay, and now number 15. Take time for just being. This is kind of like rest, but it's a little bit different. If you're a doer who's always out doing and creating and putting your energy into specific things and, going, make sure that you take time for just being. Just sit and look at a tree in your backyard for 5 minutes. Even if it's a short span of time, having those moments where we aren't just like very intentionally directing our energy and where we're just open to kind of receiving the present moment is important. So allow yourself the time and space for that. Okay, I know this has been a long list and it certainly isn't exhaustive, but these are things that I come back to in terms of keeping my frequency high and raising my overall vibration, because ultimately that is what it's all about. All right, I hope this has helped you today, and I hope that you will come back and see my future videos. Bye-bye for now.